Everybody wants some blast of magic, 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 magic. I got the magic in me.
Welcome back. Time for the next all-new Magician 101, the show for all magicians, Christmas edition. This is, it's Christmas because I'm sitting in front of the Christmas tree, that kind of thing. Alright, so, we have a lot of questions this week. Remember to post your questions down below for next week. I'll give them an answer. And also, thank you to every single one of you for getting me to 700 subscribers. I hit 700 yesterday if you didn't see that video earlier today. Alright, first question comes from Mr. Tadpole221. What do you think about STS, or the self-tying shoelace? I never really thought I would use that trick in my routine. I saw magicians do it before, and I was like, it doesn't really suit me. Then I was watching a couple months ago the show called The Carbonaro Effect, where magician Michael Carbonaro does magic tricks to unsuspecting people. It's on True TV, Thursdays at 10. If you've never seen it, I recommend checking it out because it's really a good show. But he did the self-tying shoelace back in season 1, and when he did it, he talked about how the shoelaces remember to be tied. And I thought it was a clever concept. I liked his pattern, and I was like, this might make me want to get that trick now. So, I really enjoyed the trick. So, I think, after watching Michael Carbonaro's performance, and that happens with a lot of times in magic for me, I'll be watching an effect, and I'm like, I don't like that. And then I'll see a magician do it with completely different pattern than I saw originally, and I'm like, oh wow, that's a really cool trick. And I go home and look it up, and I'm like, wait, that's the trick that I don't like. Now I like it. So, I really do like the self-tying shoelace now after seeing Michael Carbonaro's pattern. So, I definitely think it's a great trick. If you're thinking about getting it, I would say go for it because it's a really, really cool trick. So, really fun. And I think it would fit well in a lot of people's shows. It's not one that's high on my magic wish list that I really want. So, but, if I ever do get extra spending money, maybe I'll get that one. I don't know. Alright, Wayne Carter has the final question. When someone out of the blue asks you to do a trick, what is your go-to trick? Alright, good question, actually. First of all, I'm going to give you a big piece of advice. Always carry something magic on you. Carry some kind of magic prop on you, whether it be a deck of cards in your pocket or something that you can carry around in your wallet, like you could carry around a money trick or like a trick that uses dollar bills or a credit card or something like that. But I always, except when I'm at work, I carry a deck of cards in my pocket. When I'm out and about, like when I go to like Walmart or I'm out and about doing errands, I always carry a deck of cards in my pocket because you never know when someone is going to come up to you and say, I remember you from that gig that you did at, such and such a place. Do a trick for me. Or they'll say, can you do a trick for me? And the worst thing is, you never want to go up to somebody who says, I recognize you from such and such a place. And you say, oh, I don't have my magic props on me, sorry. And then they're like, oh. Because then it's like a big letdown for them when you can't do a trick. You should be able to have something. You either carry something on you, whether it be sponge balls. I got a tip from a magician. He's no longer on YouTube. He was a really good magician. He still does magic, I think. I heard last time I talked to him. But he did do magic. He was really good. But he gave me a good tip saying, I always carry sponge balls with me because they can fit in the pocket. They're portable. They don't take up any pocket space, and you can do an awesome magic trick with sponge balls. I always carry cards. My go-to trick, though, when I do have my cards in my pocket, is Chris Ballinger's Forced Outcome. That, or I do the David Blaine 2-card Monty thing from his TV special. Those are my two go-to tricks. They require no setup. Sort of. The 2-card Monty effect, you have to put some cards on the top of the deck. But other than that, there's no setup, really. So you can even start off with the trick already set in your pocket and pull it out and do the 2-card Monty thing. But anyways, so I do those two tricks. If I have my sponge balls on me, sometimes I'll go into a standard sponge ball routine, where it's like you take 2 sponge balls, one jumps in the spectator's hands, and then you show 3, and then you talk about having 3, and then how you have 3, and then all that stuff. So I do our standard sponge ball routine. Now, if I'm ever in a situation where I don't have my magic props on me, and there has been a couple times, I always pull out a mentalism trick that they can do in their mind. A mental mentalism trick. Try saying that 3 times fast. Something like the gray elephants in Denmark trick is an awesome trick when you have no props on you. And I'm actually going to go over that trick and kind of expose the secret to the trick for the gray elephants in Denmark. It's a really fun trick. Basically, I'll go through the entire pattern, and you follow along too. If you're watching this video, follow along with me and see if you come out to get the correct outcome. So think of a number between 1 and 10. Don't tell me what it is. Don't tell anybody else if there's somebody else watching the video with you. Actually, if somebody else is watching the video with you, bring them in here so they can play along with this trick as well. So think of a number between 1 and 10. Don't tell anybody what it is. Multiply that number by 2. Whatever it is, multiply it by 2. And add 8 to your new number. Add 8 to your new number. And divide that number by 2. Alright, now that you've done that, subtract from your original number. Whatever that new number you have now is, subtract that from the number you started with. And you should have a number between 1 and 26. If you don't, you did the math wrong, go back and redo the math. But if you do have a number between 1 and 26, take that number and match it with a letter of the alphabet. So if your number is 1, it would be A. If your number is 2, it would be B. C is 3. D is 4. E is 5. F is 6. So on and so on. Q is 17 and all that. So think of a letter of the alphabet that corresponds to that number. Now take that letter and think of any European country in the world that begins with that letter. Any European country. Alright, if you don't have a European country in mind, go look up a map of Europe. But if you have that European country in mind, take the second letter of the country's name and think of the circus animal that begins with that letter. Alright, so think of the second letter. Think of a circus animal. Second letter of that country's name. A circus animal. Now, focus on the color of the animal. So now you think about the country, animal, and the color, and I will try to receive your thoughts via the internet. Wait, I'm sorry. We must have done something wrong with this trick because there are no gray elephants in Denmark. If it was gray elephants in Denmark and I got it right, make sure to post down below if I got it right or not. I just want to see if I did or not. All right. So that's the gray elephant in Denmark trick. Let me go over it really quickly. You do all the steps, the same order that I did them. So you think of a number between 1 and 10, multiply the number by 2, add 8 to the number, and then divide by 2, subtract from your original number, and the number will always come out to be 4. Always. So if you follow the math steps the same way each time, and you do the math the same way, the letter will always, or the number, will always be 4. So you could do some amazing magic with that. You could say, you can do something where you have, a 4 of diamonds or something in your pocket, and you pull it out, and you say, oh, wait, your number is 4? And you can do some amazing things with that. But now that you know the number, you then tell them to think of a letter of the alphabet that corresponds to that number. And since you know it's 4, you know that it's going to be D, will be their letter. Now, you tell them to think of any country in the world that begins with that letter. Now, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can do what I did and say European country, or you can say any country that begins with that letter. Because they could do something to mess you up. There are a few other countries that start with D, like Dominican Republic, and they could think of that. So you could say European country. Because if you think of a European country, there's only one that starts with D, and that's Denmark. So they have to go with that. So I normally say European country just so they don't think of something Dominican Republic or something like that. Then you tell them to take the second letter of the country's name, which will be E. And actually, in this case, you could also tell them take the letter that comes next in the alphabet after that letter. So because their letter is D, the next letter would be E. So you could either have them do that way, say the next letter that comes in the alphabet, or you could say, take the second letter of the country's name, which would be E as well. I tell them to think of a circus animal because there's one other animal that begins with an E that they might think of. An emu. they could go emu. So if you, because I've had that once before where I said, think of any animal that begins with that letter, and they did say, well, my animal was emu. So I always go now circus. After that one instance, I always go circus animal now. And the circus animal is elephant. Then you can also say to them, which I didn't do in the little demo that I did, I always say, think of the color that animal normally is. Because one other instance when I did this trick for somebody, they thought of a pink elephant. And I said, think of a color that animal is. And they were like, well, what about the Disney movie Dumbo where they say pink elephants are on parade? And I was like, oh, yeah, true. So now I go, think of the color that animal normally is. That way, that eliminates all confusion there. They don't think of a pink elephant or something like that. And then you say, and then you just build up the end. And at the ending, don't just go, oh, it's Grey Elephants Denmark. I always go, wait. I say, let me try to pick up what you're thinking. I think about it for like 3 seconds, and I'm like, we did something wrong. Because there are no gray elephants in Denmark. And that gets them every time. To wrap this video up, I did this effect for a presentation I did in college once, where I took a speech class. And I did a speech on magic, and I talked about the history of magic, how to get into magic, that kind of thing. And you had to do a demonstration. So somebody did, like, I think a speech on baking, and they brought in cookies for everybody. So my speech, I did a couple magic tricks, and at the end of the routine, at the end of my speech, the teacher was like, you gotta show us one more. So I did the Grey Elephants in Denmark, and the moment I delivered that line, I always get giddy when I think about this, because it was such an amazing magic moment. The moment I deliver that line, there are no gray elephants in Denmark, the teacher's jaw dropped to the floor. She was like, I mean, her mouth was like open and dropped for like 2 minutes. She was just like, and then after the shock wore off of me getting it right, she went around and said because I told the class, everyone participate. She was like, what was your number? Mine was 9. You picked 7? Wait, how did you know? How did we all get the same? She was so freaked out. I get so giddy thinking about that. So even a simple trick like that one can have a big impact. All right. So, I hope I answered your question there, Wayne. I know it was kind of long and drawn out there, but you got some good material. Also, one more thing to do is restore credit. David Regal, another great go-to trick. You can keep that in your wallet. You can tear a credit card and then restore it. Really fun. All right, that's going to do it for this week's Magician 101. Remember, this show is based on your questions, and I've posed a challenge to every single one of you watching this Magician 101 out there. I know each week we get a lot of viewers. The rest of December, the rest of the month of December, I want a challenge. I want everyone to submit a question. I want this to be a jam-packed December where we have like 20 questions each show. So, that's a challenge. That is a challenge. I want to have more than 4 questions each week. Just a little bit of a challenge. If not, nothing's going to happen if not, but I just want to kind of do a little challenge for you guys. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm going to see you next Wednesday for another all-new Magician 101.
If you'd like to see more awesome content, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. New videos are posted every day of the week. Also, check out my website and register so you can post in the forums. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, like me on Facebook, add me to your Google Plus circles, and check out my merchandise store to pick up some awesome swag. 444RR, game shows, magic, and more.